everyone, and welcome along to our annual roundup of all the weird news that's happened over the year just gone, or should that be, about to go. Now, even though 2022 has been a year where the general population are emerging out of a pandemic, or in some cases still stuck in the thick of one, it may feel like not much has happened, but actually, loads of things that aren't such mainstream news stories have been going on. There have been plenty of strange things happening throughout the year, and so I thought it might be nice to spend a little time together taking a look at those strange, horrendous and odd occurrences from the whole of 2022, like a cathartic cleansing ritual to put the year behind us before we start a whole new year of weird in 2023. So grab yourself a beverage and a suitably festive snack, and let's look back on the bimfire that was 2022. January. Dead pensioner appears in post office to collect his pension. 2 men in County Carlow in Ireland were arrested after a strange occurrence in a post office on Friday, January the 21st, 2022. Firstly, a man entered the post office, which is said to be the busiest one in the area, and asked to claim a man's pension, one which didn't belong to him. When the cashier informed the man that the owner needed to be present for the withdrawal of the money, the man went away. However, a short while later, the same man returned, but this time he had another 2 men with him, a friend and the pension owner. The 2 younger men seemed to be propping up the rightful owner of the pension and presented him to the cashier. When the cashier decided that something wasn't quite right, she left the men at the counter to go and raise the alarm and call the authorities. Soon after, the 2 younger men realised they could be in trouble, and so they left the older man in the post office. It was soon apparent that the man they left behind was very much deceased. Along with the authorities attending the scene, a priest was also called for to read the man's last rites, and the post office staff formed a small congregation and prayed for the man in what may possibly go down as the weirdest day at work ever. Police attended the scene and had the corpse removed from the post office, sending it for a post-mortem. Those in the area said they were shocked to hear of the incident, with one woman who saw the men carrying the body into the post office saying she knew something wasn't right when she saw the man's feet were dragging along the floor instead of walking. Once the post-mortem had been carried out, any fears of foul play were allayed as the man had died from natural causes. However, the report showed that he was most definitely dead already by the time he was unceremoniously dumped in the post office. When further investigations were carried out into what exactly had happened, the man was identified as 66-year-old Peter Doyle. He'd been presented at the counter by his nephew Declan Hoffney and his friend. After reviewing the CCTV footage and in conjunction with the post-mortem report, the police concluded that Peter was indeed dead before he was removed from his home. This made the act a criminal offence, as if he'd died in the post office, this wouldn't have been a crime. Declan and his friend, who is still at this time unnamed, were both seen in court and both charged with deception for trying to steal the €246 pension payment. At the time of writing, both men have been released on continuing bail, and a small cash payment has been made to the court. Netflix, the lickable TV screen that provides rentable restaurant meals. The Pani D gave inventors around the world plenty of time to think about what might be useful in a time of lockdown and isolation. One inventor from Japan came up with an idea that would transport users from their living room to any restaurant in the world. Home Miyashita from Japan's Meiji University has come up with a cunning idea to allow people to taste any meal they like just by licking a screen.
普通テレビっていうのは映像が出る、そして中に大概スピーカーが入っていて音も一緒に出るということで映像と音声が合わさって配信されているというものだと思います。でそれに味覚も加えて味も一緒に配信する。画面を直接舐めるとそこに映っている食べ物の味を本当に味わえるっ っていう風なデザインにしています。
Homei said he decided he would create TTTV, which stands for Taste the TV, in a response to lockdowns and to bring any flavour imaginable into people's living room. The screen allows users to ask the machine for a specific flavour or dish, and it will create a fusion of flavour sprays to create the lickable meal. The flavour is then sprayed onto a screen, ready for the consumer to, well, consume. Since his invention, Homei has been keen to get his innovative idea onto the market and to get it into people's living rooms. He also says the sprays can be put onto something like a cracker or bread to make the whole experience a bit more edible rather than just lickable. The whole idea being that the machine can allow people to try out a vast array of flavours from around the world without ever having to travel. He also imagines at some point in the future that there will be a service just like Netflix, aka Netlix, where people can rent flavours which will go directly to the machine, and they can have a gourmet meal of fancy flavoured crackers.
いろんな世界中の味が味コンテンツとして流通するようなプラットフォームを作ろうと思っています。こう例えば好きな映画を見るとか好きな音楽を聴くのと同じ感じで好きな国の好きなレストランの好きな料理の味をダウンロードして味わうっていうことが将来的にできたらいいなというふうに思っています。
TTTV
食べたいものは何ですか？
甘いチョコレートが食べたいです。
甘いチョコレートですね。
すごいちゃんとミルクチョコの味がして甘くて美味しいです。
How do you feel about the lickable TV screen? Do you think it's the future of food or just a fun fad? I think I'd like to try it, but to be honest, it's never going to replace garlic bread, is it? Jonathan, the world's oldest tortoise. Now, if you didn't already know this about me, I bloody love animals, so when I hear about one doing something extraordinary, it fills my little stone heart with glee. So imagine my joy when a tortoise made it into the news simply for just being really, really old. Allow me to introduce you to Jonathan. Mind you, he's been around long enough that you may have already bumped into him. Jonathan lives on the island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic, but he was originally imported from the Seychelles. He was brought to the island as a fully grown adult in 1882, and he was at that time already suspected to be about 50 years old. As his owners don't know his hatching date, his overall age can only be based on photographs, but it's calculated that he must be about 190, so in January he celebrated that enormous milestone. Jonathan is quite the celebrity on the island, and he even has his face on their 5-pence coin. Also, to commemorate his 190th birthday, he got his face on a collection of stamps, and anyone visiting the island that day was given a certificate to commemorate the momentous day. He's even made it into the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest living land animal. Despite his age, Jonathan is in good health. His only ailment is cataracts. However, his keepers say that his hearing is pin sharp and he can hear food being prepared from a mile away. Jonathan is a Seychelles giant tortoise. He is owned by the government of St. Helena and lives in the grounds of their offices, along with 2 other giant tortoises, Frederica and Emily. Frederica is Jonathan's longtime squeeze, and the two have been together for only a relatively short amount of time in tortoise years. They got together in 1991. However, Jonathan also has another lady, Emily, but she's more of a mistress. Both the other tortoises are spring chickens compared to old Jonathan, as both of them are in their 50s, and he's been seen to mate with both of them. However, plot twist, after Frederica was checked over by a vet, she realised that actually Frederica is Frederick. So there we have it. The world's oldest living creature is a 190-year-old polyamorous, pansexual, partially sighted giant tortoise. And I love him. Now, before we move on to our final story from January, I just want to take a moment to tell you about the marvellous Magic Mind. Now, it takes me a lot of time to write these episodes, and a lot of the time when I'm really struggling with things, I do resort to caffeine. However, I've found that drinking just a shot of Magic Mind in the morning is all I need to make sure that I get things done. I've been using these little green shots now for a little while, and I've found that they've really improved my focus and my ability to stay focused, and also just my overall drive, I would say. I'm really finding that my productivity has really gone through the roof since drinking Magic Mind. Now, in particular, prepping for this series, which requires me to pour through a lot of newspapers, and a lot of newspapers that are really not that easy to read, full of adverts, I've found that Magic Mind has really helped me to stay focused and to not get fed up and get really disheartened and find it really difficult to write episodes. But I found that it's really, really helping me. I was finding before that I was getting something which I refer to as the 3 p.m. slump, and finding that I really couldn't do very much more after about 3 p.m. But since I've been using Magic Mind repeatedly and consistently, I find that 3 p.m. slump has really gone now, and actually afternoons are way more boosted and I can just get on with stuff. Inside Magic Mind, you'll find a really unique blend of ingredients, including lion's mane mushrooms and cordyceps mushrooms. There's also a lovely boost of green tea in there, and recently I found out that it's got echinacea and honey in it too, and both of these things are really great when we're heading into cold season. Thanks to the people at Magic Mind, I've been working my way through a larger pack this time, and it's definitely something which I've seen the benefits of if you use it for long term, and so I really recommend getting their subscription, which is their best deal. I would never recommend anything that I don't actually like myself, so you're safe in the knowledge that this is an excellent way to start your mornings, and I honestly feel this has really helped me to be able to concentrate better for longer and to contribute bringing you the series that you're currently listening to. If you're interested in trying Magic Mind for yourself, then you can get a whopping 40% off a subscription, which is their best deal, or 20% off your first one-time purchase by visiting the Magic Mind website at www.magicmind.co/macabre and using my offer code MACABRE. The 40% off code is only valid for 10 days, so if you want to get that 40% off and to try it for yourself to start on your better focus journey, you'll have to be quick. That's www.magicmind.co/MACABRE and using my offer code MACABRE. Thanks for listening, and back to the episode. Okay, now time for possibly the most British story from January. A dog was rescued from mudflats in Hampshire by a dangling sausage flown by a drone. Millie, a Jack Russell Whippet cross, had been out for a walk with her owner when she slipped the lead and ran off. After evading several attempts to catch her, she ran further away and was reported by her concerned owner as she'd managed to get onto the highly volatile mudflats, an area which not only has sinking mud, but also becomes engulfed when the tide rises. She'd been spotted on a mudflat, but too far out for a human to reach. A rescue kayak was deployed, but they couldn't reach her from the sea, and any attempt to call her over didn't work. To keep an eye on little Millie, a drone was used to make sure she was safe. Then, rescuers decided that they had to act quickly to try and lure her away from the danger of the mud before the tide started to come in. Someone suggested attaching food to the drone. Knocking on a nearby neighbour's door, a lady suggested cooking up a sausage or two. Whilst the bangers were sizzling away, the rescue team calculated the weight of the sausage to see if it would affect the drone's flight. But it was all good to go, and before long, a dangling, tasty sausage was winging its way to a patiently waiting Millie, who thought it must have come from heaven. Millie followed her nose, and the awful dangling drone lured her to safety. Her owner, Emma, said that Millie loves her food, and as it had been a few hours since she'd been out, luckily the little pup's tummy was grumbling, so she dutifully followed the flying sausage to safety. The rescuers, which consisted of the police, fire brigade and coast guards, said that now they've used this unlikely method once, they'll more than likely give it another go if the situation occurs again. Millie was entirely unscathed from the event, just a bit tired and bewildered, but she's now made a full recovery. Let's just hope from now on that she doesn't resort to escaping as a way to get an unusual snack. Thank you for joining me for that selection of weird stories from January. I hope you enjoyed them, and if you did, there'll be more along soon, so make sure you're subscribed if you're not already to keep up with the series. If you like this news roundup and what I make in general and want it to continue, then please consider becoming a Patreon supporter like our executive Patreon producers: Amy, Christina, Jess, Kate, Kevin, Mary, Sally, Sam, Sarah and Veronica. And a huge thanks to all of my other patrons too. If you just want to send a tip or a little Christmas gift from my Amazon wishlist, then I would massively appreciate that too, and I'll leave all the links in the show notes. An enormous thank you for even considering doing any of those things, as it means the world when I get notifications like that or a surprise parcel through the post. So big squishes if you're part of that gang, you're the absolute bestest. Oh, and please don't forget to check out Magic Mind using the link in the description. A huge thanks to them for sponsoring the episode today. Thank you for joining me for all the weird news from January. I've been Nikki Juice, and I'll see you ghouls next time for February. I can never say February. February.